I'm not wanting to call you out in any negative way, because this is just the reality. It is an easy thing. It is a very human thing to go to a place of comfort, something that you know how to do well in a moment of stress. And so I want you to be able to shift your gravity upward. I want you to start to let go of some of the day-to-day pieces, some of that technician function. Start to use that technician hat less and less as time progresses, so that you can actually start to focus more on the longer term. Hey everybody, in today's episode, we wanted to tackle the tough truth for most agency owners, that you very well could be the bottleneck in your agency. And while it isn't likely intentional, it's not because you don't trust your team. It's often because it's just a byproduct of being involved in everything in your business for too long. And so every decision goes through you. There's no one else that seems to own the actual outcome. And you feel like you're the only one thinking ahead. And so it's a sign that something is going to need to shift and change. And so today I wanted to talk through what it really takes to remove yourself from the day-to-day chaos, beyond just systems, from understanding the different hats that you wear as the owner, to the levels of delegation, to helping your team be able to evaluate risk and take an initiative to actually get something done. And so this is about moving from stuck to sustainably able to grow or scalable. So let's talk about the different kind of hats that agency owners tend to make, and ultimately kind of going through different stages of the progression as an agency owner. So there's the technician, there's the manager, there's the CEO. And so at stages, you're wearing all three of these hats. There's stages that you should only be wearing one of them. And the thing that I find is that one of these hats very often is being worn too much at a stage of your business, and that you're going to need to start either wearing the hat less or completely eliminating that hat entirely to allow for you to be able to get from that stuck place to being able to grow. And so let's talk about the technician. So the technician is the one that's doing the work. They're often the creative designer. They're the one that's doing the strategic stuff. They're the ones that are doing executional tasks. They're the ones that are actually in the work. They're the ones doing the actual deliverables. So there's components likely, as you're hearing me today, that you are involved of being the technician within your agency. Now let's talk about the manager, and then we can talk about the distinction of when you should be wearing them and when you shouldn't be. So a manager is managing timelines, they're managing budgets, they're managing people, and they're just trying to keep the train running and running on time. But they're not actually doing any of the executional work. And then finally, you have the CEO. This is the strategic thinker. This is the person that's managing cash flow. This is the person that's managing vision. This is the one that's driving the business forward and making high-level decisions, but not actually directly in any given project. They're not directly in communication typically with clients. They're the ones that are driving the overall view, culture, vision, direction for the business. And so here's the thing that I see the vast majority of agency owners stuck in this technician function. They're taking this role for far too long and leaving the CEO function, the vision caster, the one creating direction, the one that's actually creating the growth, leaving it ignored, undernourished, and ultimately just kind of vacant. And so here's the thing, because you have been the designer, the strategist, the marketer for so long, that it's a default for you at this point. It's a simple, easy one for you to be able to go to in times of stress, in times of things that feel difficult, because it is something that you have done so long. It's something that you can just look at the back of your hand and you recognize it inherently. And so over time, you have become maybe a better manager, where you're more managing timelines, budgets, but you still, in moments of stress, will regress to the technician. And don't get me wrong, there's moments that you do need to wear that technician hat, there's moments that you're going to need to wear that manager hat, and some moments that you're going to need to wear that CEO hat. But the reality is how much time are you wearing each one of these hats? And as you continue to grow, there's going to be a phase of you as a business owner that means that the technician hat has been officially retired and you're no longer in the work. That, generally speaking, is in the higher seven-figure echelon of revenue. But the thing that I want you to be thinking about here is when you are executing work, when you are in the day-to-day of the business, I want you to be considering, Am I wearing technician? Am I wearing manager? Am I wearing CEO? Which hat are you wearing? What things should you be doing? What are the considerations that you are making wearing this hat? And I want you to be consistently thinking through that as we are having conversations today and in the future. It's which hat should I be wearing in this moment? Which hat do I need to be wearing more? And which one am I over defaulting into? Because this is a thing that happens for every single one of us. It happened for me included as well. And so I'm not wanting to call you out in any negative way, because this is just the reality. It is an easy thing. It is a very human thing to go to a place of comfort, something that you know how to do well in a moment of stress. And so I want you to be able to shift your gravity upward. I want you to start to let go of some of the day-to-day pieces, some of that technician function. Start to use that technician hat less and less as time progresses, so that you can actually start to focus more on the longer term. Focus more on the growth component, the manager and then the CEO function of your business, allowing for you to be able to continue to grow. And so here's the thing that I see a lot of pieces kind of get blocked here, is that I've heard so many times that this idea of delegation it hasn't worked. I've tried, it didn't work. Don't want to do it again. And the reality is that there's different types of delegation. And I want to talk about that to begin with, because the way that you actually delegate is actually a key component. Because the reality is that in order for something to be properly delegated to someone, you have to have them understand what it is and where they're taking it. What are the constraints? What are the requirements? What is it that you're actually looking to? And I see here that what happens most times is that we either did not provide enough information for them to know exactly how much authority they had, or two, that we then ended up involving ourselves too much in the process, and we're not actually allowing for the team to take the next step and more ownership, more authority within it. So level 1, delegation. I want you to do exactly what I say. In this way, step by step, do exactly what I say. Largely a training in SOP, etc., right? Now, let's say that we now want to move to the next level of delegation. So we're going to give them a thing that they are going to need to research, and I want you to come back to me with the research that you had. So check in with me. And then we're going to go to the next step. The next is going to be, I want you to do the research. I want you to figure out which is the best solution. And then I want you to come to me with your one recommendation. Essentially, let me just make that final approval to move forward. Now, the next one is, I want you to do the research. I want you to find the right solution. I want you to choose the one. And then I want you to just inform me, make the choice. I want you to move forward, but just let me know what direction you're deciding to go so that I'm informed. And the final is, you are completely removed. Here's an initiative that I want us to do. Here's a direction that I want us to go. So I want you to find the right solution. I want you to find the right plan. I want you to put it together. I want you to make the decision. And I trust you, just do it. And so here's the thing, is that what I often find is that most managers, owners are stuck at level 1. And so they are just giving the task. And so they actually haven't delegated really anything. They're not clicking the buttons anymore, but it hasn't actually elevated any of the thinking. So they're still the one that's doing the thinking. And so what ends up happening in this stage, that is the biggest challenge for most owners and most managers, is that the team then comes to you with the problem that they have, and then you answer the question. You don't actually allow for them to come to the actual conclusion themselves. So you're not fostering the ability to be able to think through these pieces. And it is a huge challenge for most people. And so in order for you to be able to start to gain more freedom, is that you're going to have to start to transfer some decision-making power, decision-making authority, and not just task ownership. This is going to require training. This is going to require trust. And this is going to require clear guardrails for them. What are the constraints and what do you feel comfortable with? And clearly, you're not going to give someone carte blanche from the first time that you give them a thing to do. You need to feel comfortable that they're making the right types of decisions. And so in order to get them into this place, there's a very key kind of piece that I have found that is very necessary. And so I was actually having a conversation, it's been several years now, with a friend of mine. And he ran into a situation with his then EA, now ops manager, that she was making a choice and had made a choice that seemed logical, but didn't consider the risk. And he was quite upset at the decision that she ended up making, because it ended up creating a whole lot more risk and unnecessary risk for the business, because she hadn't considered the potential downside of what happens if this happens, if this happens, if this happens. And I told him that it was his fault. Because the reality is that as a business owner, we recognize that we hold all the risk. So we have actually trained our minds, we have trained our process, we have trained us to recognize the risk inherent in every choice that we make. But we don't actually have our team start to think about the risk scenarios. What is the worst case scenario? Can that be undone? Can it be fixed? What happens if that happens? What are we going to do in that scenario if it takes place? What is the benefit of moving forward? What is the risk of moving forward? So what is the client risk? What is the financial risk? What is the operational risk? What is the culture risk? What is the team risk? What is the me risk? And understanding what that actually looks like and actually evaluating those pieces. And so are we comfortable with that risk or are we not? If we are, cool, we can move forward. If we're not, how do we mitigate the risk so that we are comfortable with it? And so what happens, and the reality is that as a business owner, we see this, we know this, we have it, we completely understand it because we own it. And so having a clear understanding of how do we have the team understand and calculate and be able to even understand and identify that risk in the first place? Because the reality is you are practiced at this. You have developed this skill. And if you want your team to be able to understand this, you have to help them cultivate it. You have to help them develop it. You have to help them be able to understand and also understand your own risk tolerance. Because guess what? Your risk tolerance is different than mine. Your risk tolerance is different than theirs. And they're making decisions on your behalf, on behalf of your business. And so it's important for them to understand what type of risk. So if this risk falls beyond this threshold, I want you to escalate it to me. I want you to bring me involved. If it becomes this point, I want you to collaborate on how we can mitigate it. If it's in this risk threshold, and however it is that you feel comfortable, I want you just to decide to move forward because I'm okay with that risk. And what does that actually look like? What does that actually mean? And when do we actually have a viewpoint where we're eye to eye with the risk that that team member has assessed? Because once we have an understanding that we are in alignment with that risk assessment, that they have done the right thinking there in the first place, we are going to feel a whole lot more comfortable with their decision-making criteria that they are going to be making in order to actually start to delegate a full outcome. So that final level of delegation that I was talking about earlier, where they are going to be given, here's the vision, here's the thing I want to accomplish, I want you to find the right solution, I want you to put together a plan, I want you to make the right choice, and then I want you just to implement. I don't even want to know, just do it. And so we are not going to feel comfortable with that until we know that our team is thinking about things at the level of risk that we are comfortable with. And if we don't believe that, guess what? We are going to want to be involved, because then what happens? Our risk is too high because we are never going to feel comfortable with it. And so in order for us to be able to be comfortable, we have to know that they are seeing our risk tolerance clearly, that they are seeing the risk clearly so that we can ultimately feel comfortable. And once that happens, once we see that happen regularly enough, we will feel comfortable. Because the most well-developed component of us as human beings in general, not just as business owners, is assessing risk. What is the risk to us? But as a business owner, we have a very different type of risk. And so that skill has been developed in time. And help your team develop it. Pour into your team, help them understand it. And being able to actually have that be clear. The next piece that I wanted to talk about is this solution-oriented mindset. And I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. But the thing that I find was really an interesting piece for me is that, like, I really, as I have mentioned over and over and over again, that I had this kind of transition that I had to realize, and it still kind of happens now from time to time, but this understanding and idea that I enjoyed feeling important and I enjoyed feeling needed. I still do now, but to a little bit too much, we'll say. So when someone came to me with a problem, I enjoyed solving it, and I would just give them the solution, and it made me feel good. But the reality is that it did a couple of things. One, it made them reliant upon me to solve the problems. Two, it didn't actually have them being solution-oriented in their own mindset. And so that we ended up kind of stuck in this place that I was the decision maker for all things. And eventually I started to get really frustrated of, like, why am I the only person thinking? I'm like, well, I kind of did this to myself. And if you're in that place, you very well might have done it to yourself as well. And so here's the thing I want us to talk about. There's this concept that Dan Sullivan created, the 131, and I really enjoy it because of its simplicity. And I think that there's things that you can do to expand upon it, and I have expanded upon it in my own practice of it. But the idea is incredibly simple. It's, what is the actual core problem? And I want to hit this one very importantly. So you have a problem in front of you, but what is the actual core problem? And what I find happens so incredibly frequently is that we're solving for the symptom. We're not actually solving for the problem. It's like, hey, I've got blockage in my arteries, and I'm going to go then, I'm going to take blood thinners. I'm going to then clean out I'm going to rotor my veins. It's like, well, why is that there in the first place? Your cholesterol's high, you've been eating wrong, all those sorts of things that need to happen. So that's the actual core of the problem, right? And so The challenge is that first one is actually really important, and it does take some time and mentorship to get them to this first piece. But one is, what is the actual core problem? So in general, I see here's the actual known problem, here's the unknown problem, and then here's the hidden problem. And that hidden problem is actually difficult in a lot of instances to uncover. But I find personally that finding the actual problem is 99% of the solution, really, is that you have to understand what the problem is in the first place. And once you have a clear understanding of what the actual problem is, then we start to automatically start to see what potential solutions are. So once you've actually identified that problem, you can start to identify the solution. So what is that one core problem? Then what are 3 potential solutions, and what is your one recommendation? Because the idea here is that as the owner, as the manager, your job is to say yes or no. That is your job. Your job isn't to assess all the in-between. Your job is to say yes or no. And once you're actually fully implementing this framework with your team, it actually allows for them to start to be more autonomous, strategic thinking. The way that I implemented this, that I actually took this into practice with my team when I first was kind of learning this concept, is that I created a Calendly link and I had them actually do it. I did a bit.ly kind of trackable so that I understood how many people would go to it in the first place and how frequently it actually happened. And what I found was that 8 times out of 10, when they actually started to follow this and actually start to do this over time, 8 times out of 10, they wouldn't even end up scheduling a time with me. So in order for them to schedule time with me, for me to help them evaluate a problem or to help them solve a problem, they would have to go through solving and answering 1, 3, 1. And if they didn't know the final one, then fine, they could still come. It wasn't a required field. But just the thinking alone, putting this blockade actually allowed for them to start to think through, and they actually didn't really need me. And it became abundantly clear as they started to go through the known, the unknown, the hidden problem. And as they started to really flex that muscle, work out that muscle, it became abundantly clear to them. It became a whole lot easier. And so the thing that I want you to be thinking about here, and the final kind of piece that I want you to distill, is the signs that you are the bottleneck and that you need to be thinking about some of these solutions that I'm talking about today, is that you're the only one who knows what's going on in all departments. You're the one that actually has the beat of what's happening in your agency today. Deadlines slip, things go past due, unless you are the one pushing them. Team members default to you for decisions that you know that they could make themselves, that they've done this 12 times, but they're going to come to you just to double check. And you feel like you cannot unplug physically, mentally, emotionally, because without you, things would feel like they are stalling. If that's the case, you are a bottleneck. Whether you're going to solve all of those points today or tomorrow, probably not. But you can start making traction towards them. And so part of it is your own reaction, your own action is causing some of these pieces. But the way that you engage with your team is core to solving this problem, whether it's delegation, whether it's risk assessment, or whether it's actually the solution-oriented mindset. But these frameworks will help you develop a path, a structure, to allow for you to be able to trust and start letting go. Creating structure like SOPs, project management systems, decision frameworks that allow for them to move forward. Trust that you can build with your team that allows for you to feel comfortable that they're going down the right direction, and eventually being able to start to let go. So if you find yourself stuck in the weeds, consistently answering questions and unable to focus on the growth of your agency, frankly, you're not alone. It's not just a time management issue. It isn't. It's a system and leadership challenge. Start by identifying the role that you should be playing or the role that you are playing too much. Build that decision-making framework with your team, with your leadership team, and trust your team to rise to the occasion. One of the key things that I realized at one point was that my team cannot stand in a place that I'm currently standing. And while I'm not going to vacate the room, I just need to take a step to the right or to the left to allow for them to stand in that spot. And so that's how you're going to start to be able to get some of your freedom back, step by step, minute by minute, hour by hour, week by week, and unlock some real, true, sustainable growth in your business.